That's right, everyone. We have the Todd Howard spiced pumpkin candle lit, which means we have to talk about some blowback over all of this stuff happening with Starfield. I'm not going to play the game today, thank God, but I do want to talk a little bit about some of the aftermath from the Shattered Space expansion, because there was a design director that is fairly well known that came out and was defending the game and pretty much acting like there was nothing wrong, which rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And now Bethesda has people coming out kind of playing defense, saying, no, we actually are aware of problems, don't get upset. It's very, very fascinating and interesting. So I just wanted to make a quick video talking about it before my video on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 goes up tomorrow. So make sure to subscribe for that. Just to lay the foundation for this, in case you're somehow not aware, about a week and a half ago, Bethesda launched the Shattered Space expansion for Starfield. This was the first big expansion they've spent a year building, and a lot of fans were expecting this to be the big moment where Starfield could break free of its mold of procedural generation and showcase just why Bethesda is as well known as they are, that they are really good at world building, handcrafted environments, etc., and this was going to be the expansion to demonstrate those skill sets. However, when it launched, a lot of people, myself included, played it and found it shockingly short, shallow, and boring. I even tweeted out my initial impressions, just simply saying that I accidentally finished it in an afternoon. Not because I pressed a wrong button or something. I just honestly thought it was going to be longer than 4 to 5 hours of main story content. So while I was playing through it at a healthy pace, trying to take the story seriously, it just ended and I didn't know what to do. I thought I'd be able to play it for an entire afternoon, and then the next day I would be able to make a video about halfway through the expansion and look at some of the cool things they were doing. But no, it's just that short and shallow. And yes, there is more content to be found in side quests and stuff, but even that is quite lackluster. And a lot of people came at me saying that I rushed it, saying that I didn't play it properly, or that I was just a hater or whatever, because I was one of the first people to come out about it and say that I thought it was a poopy. But then everybody started finishing it later that day and started putting out their reviews the day following. And while there are a couple of outliers like Xbox Era, which is hilarious, saying that it's one of the best expansions I've ever played, blah, 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 the overwhelming consensus is that this is not great. 59 is a failing grade pretty much anywhere. And it's just a lot of people very frustrated that this is what Bethesda was able to put out after a year of working on it. And whether you love BGS, whether you hate them, whether you loved Starfield or you hated it, it's just not a great expansion. And it's okay to say that. And to their credit, a lot of Xbox focused YouTube channels and streamers and Twitter accounts, even like Bethesda focused channels, guys who have historically played defense for Bethesda Game Studios and kind of look the other way on a lot of the scummy stuff they've done, even they are coming out and being like, it's not great, guys. Like pretending as though it's amazing, it just makes you look stupid because it's just transparently not. You can enjoy the individual writing, that's fine. You can enjoy maybe the art direction, that's totally fine and up to you. But there are things that are quantifiable. There are things that we can look at objectively and compare to competitors, and it's just not anywhere near it. The fact that they're charging the same amount as Phantom Liberty or as more than actually Hearts of Stone for The Witcher 3 or Far Harbor, these are expansions which have way more content, way more effort, objectively better writing with more nuance and variation within decisions that can be made, more gameplay alterations and new mechanics that are introduced. Like, no matter which way you look at it, this is a lackluster expansion, and it's okay to say that. But that brings us to the main topic of the video, which is that Emil Pagliarulo, who is the design director for Bethesda Game Studios, he also did a lot of the writing. Like, he came up with the dragon shouts and stuff in Skyrim. He's an OG. He's even in the making of documentaries for Fallout 3 way back in the day. So he's been there forever as he's climbed the ranks, and now he's one of the head honchos. He's basically Todd Howard's right-hand man, is my understanding. And he was asked about some of the blowback and some of the reactions to Starfield and Shattered Space. And, this headline is quite generous, saying it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but what is? Basically framing Starfield as a great game, but it's just not for everybody. And the people that it's not for just are upset about it because they really want the Elder Scrolls 6. Whether that's fair as an individual point is kind of up in the air. But if we look a little bit further down, we get to the point that really upset people and caused a bit of backlash. Here specifically, he said, quote, I think in a lot of ways, Starfield is the hardest thing Bethesda has ever done. We pushed ourselves to make something totally different, to just jam into an Xbox the biggest, richest space simulation RPG anyone could imagine. That we pulled it off makes Starfield something of a technical marvel. It's also, in a lot of ways, the best game we've ever made.
You sure about that?
Even BGS fans, like some of the hardcore guys that have been covering your stuff for going on decades, probably, like, or even just a decade, like even Mr. Matty Plays, I think would probably be like, best game you've ever made? I'm not like the best, really? But he goes on, but for us, most importantly, Starfield has its own unique personality and now sits next to Fallout and the Elder Scrolls, which again, like it's fine if they're really happy with it, but comparing Starfield and its fan base and the reactions to it to Fallout or Elder Scrolls, maybe one day it is on that level, but right now it's just not. He goes on, it might not be everybody's cup of tea, but what is? We created a new IP from the ground up and an experience that is absolutely unique on consoles. Maybe I wouldn't say that's necessarily a good thing. Like if nobody else has done it, maybe there's a reason, but moving on. And I'm not saying Starfield is better or worse than any other game, just different in what we offer. It's that weird Bethesda blend of immersion, action, and RPG, but also different to Bethesda's other RPGs, says Pagliarulo. Quote, Starfield is developing its own unique fan base, which I think is certainly true. It's big and it's growing. I'm not so sure about that. Bethesda used to feel like the studio of Elder Scrolls. Then it was the studio you'd associate with Elder Scrolls and Fallout. Now it's Elder Scrolls, Fallout, and Starfield. Bethesda Game Studios is big three. And this is where people just started to get frustrated because I understand what they're trying to do. They want to have three big franchises, but people love Fallout. People love the Elder Scrolls, and people tolerate Starfield. And to hear that their approach within the studio is to hold them all on the same footing is frustrating for a lot of players because they feel as though this means, okay, well, it's going to be 20 years between each major release. That's what we're doing. Like, we're going to have to wait until probably 2028 for Elder Scrolls 6, and then we got to wait another 7-8 years for Fallout 5. And each time it's just going to get pushed back further and further and further because it's taken forever to make these games. And you're just going to cram them full of paid DLC and expect that to hold us over, or do a big MMO like a Fallout 76. And it's not what people want. People want to hear affirmations that, yep, we hear the feedback. We understand that you guys have problems with Starfield. We get it. But moving forward, we're focused entirely on Elder Scrolls. We're focused on the feedback. We're focused on learning from the feedback of Starfield. But instead, none of that's being said. Instead, it's one of the best games we've ever made, if not the best game we've ever made in a lot of ways. And we're really proud of it. And we're really proud of the expansion. They were comparing this expansion to Far Harbor, which should tell you how out of touch they are if they really thought that that was the case. But he goes on. He pointed to the ending of Fallout 3 as a pivotal moment in Bethesda's philosophy towards DLC. Basically, before the addition of this expansion, players would just die at the end of the game. If you never played it, you just couldn't continue. It was really weird, and they didn't really give you a choice. It was just like, that's what's happening now. And he said, quote, let me tell you, players did not like that. And that was really the moment we realized that our fans don't want to play our games. They want to live in the worlds we create. That means their experiences never end, and the content, whatever it is, works together as seamlessly as we can make it. And this I find worrisome, because I don't think that that's actually what Bethesda Game Studios fans, or old school fans, or former fans, whatever you want to call them, I don't think that's what they connect with. They don't want to play Skyrim on like the same save file for 5,000 hours. They want to be able to go in, try new mods, new experiences, rework it in this way or that way, but go through the experience with the replayability that it offers because of the dynamic systems in place, and enjoy slightly different experiences every single time. They don't want to just have a game with endless procedurally generated quests that just cycle over and over and over again. And to misunderstand that and think that's why people were upset about Fallout 3's ending, that worries me that Emil just fundamentally doesn't know what fans like. But that's something we're going to allude to in just a few minutes, because there's another thing that we can point to that suggests that Emil doesn't actually listen to critiques or criticisms. He actually may actively ignore them, which would explain why they seem so out of touch with some of their design decisions. But just to wrap up this interview, you can see that he's discussing what they looked at and what they thought of when they were making the Shattered Space expansion. And he said, quote, "Always keep your hits in mind. For Shattered Space, Fallout 4's Far Harbor was the real touchstone in terms of landmass size, quest lines, and quality. They thought they were on the same level as Far Harbor with this. Again, like, if that's what they really thought they had here, and they're not just lying or trying to spin this for advertising, that is straight up delusional. There is no one who has played this expansion except the most hard-headed troglodytic buffoon that thinks this is on the same level as Far Harbor. It's just not. Like, again, you might like the individual quest writing, you might like the art style, that's all fine. But there are things we can quantify, things we can look and count and add up and compare, where Far Harbor is just objectively more impressive than Starfield Shattered Space. It just is. And again, pretending as though that's not the case is just ridiculous. He goes on, but then, as happens when you have something special, the project takes on its own life. It becomes its own thing. It exists in its own pocket of awesome outside a comparison to something else. And when that happens, that's when you dive in, fully committed to the vision, and your gut is just telling you it's going to be good because it was made with so much passion. You got too much passion, okay? Too much. Again, it's just... it reaffirms the idea that they are in their own bubble, their own echo chamber, and not looking for outside feedback. It's like, well, it's going to be really good. We're really passionate about it. That does not make a good game. Do you think the developers of Concord were passionate about what they were doing? I think so. It just wasn't enough. It wasn't good. So that didn't mean anything. And on the flip side, do you think like the developers of Dustborn were really passionate about that? I bet they were, probably to a ridiculous degree, but it didn't make for a good game. Sure didn't. So at the end of this interview, people were actually quite perturbed. People felt as though it was an affirmation that the people in charge over at BGS were out of touch. They were reacting to the negative feedback of the expansion in a way where they were basically hand waving it away and acting like, well, nope, it's a you problem. If you didn't like it, you just didn't get it. You know, it reminds me of when Todd Howard said, when asked, like, how do you respond to the feedback that people gave you about Starfield? Because it was quite polarizing. I think it was on the interview he did with Greg Miller. And he said, well, you know, there were a lot of people that liked Starfield a lot. And then there were people that liked it less. It was the most like used car salesman thing ever. Instead of just acknowledging what was plainly evident, that a lot of people didn't just not get it. A lot of people actively disliked it. They found the exploration boring. They played the game, they just didn't like it and thought what they did previously with other games was way better. So it just, again, affirms that they have their head in the sand and are refusing to listen to critical feedback. And I think the expansion is a confirmation of that sentiment. And it's gotten so bad that they actually came out and made a statement where they said, and as the headline says, nobody, and I mean nobody at Bethesda, is patting themselves on the back while ignoring our players. Which, if you have to come out and say this, something's gone terribly wrong. He said, first, the interview, as the design director, sometimes I'm asked or instructed to do interviews. I was happy to do that to represent the designers and the studio. Seeing how hard and passionately they worked on Shattered Space, they deserve nothing less. Optimism and excitement are pretty standard for interviews, and I'm generally pretty optimistic and excitable about games by nature. That said, my optimism is in no way meant to be mud in the eye of any dissatisfied fan. That's not how it works. I think the key, though, my friend, is when you're in a position of leadership and the ship has run aground in a way, for you to be like, yeah, but we're going to get right back out there. And, you know, we've had a great voyage so far. And a lot of people love the voyage. And the boat ride was so smooth until the last 5 minutes. But it's been great. And talk about the fresh air. Like, it just makes you seem out of touch. Like you don't know what's going on. We've run aground. There is water pouring into the ship. Maybe we deal with that instead of talking about how beautiful the seagulls were 20 minutes ago. And I feel like that's kind of the problem people have, is they feel like something has gone very wrong within BGS, where they could put out a Shattered Space pretending as though it was on the same level as Far Harbor. And when stacked with everything else that's been going on with Bethesda, it just feels really, really bad that they're pretending as though everything's great while selling $7 quests that don't work, or while launching patches for games from 2015 that are supposed to be next-gen upgrades that just break it, which again, Fallout 4's next-gen update, still not fixed, still totally broken. If you've not rolled back your version of the game to the previous one prior to their next-gen update, it just doesn't work for you. It's unbelievable, but pretending as though everything's great, being optimistic, just makes you look out of touch. He continued on, I'm also very proud of Shattered Space. We all are. Most of the quests and levels were done by designers who have worked on previous Bethesda games and DLCs, going all the way back to Morrowind. They're good at what they do, and it shows. I think a couple of the quests it showed, there were a couple of fun ones, but the vast majority were just more Starfield bloat, in my opinion. If folks haven't played Shattered Space and they like Starfield, I think they're missing out. If folks have played Shattered Space and still don't like it, that makes me sad, honestly. Just know that we've also been hearing from plenty of people who love it. And that's fine. I'm sure you are hearing from people that love it and eat it up. But one thing I have heard and seen a lot is that a lot of people feel as though if you don't like Starfield, you are a Bethesda hater. People have asked me, why do you make so many videos on Starfield? Why do you cover BGS so much? It's because I'm a fan, dumbass. It's because I love Bethesda games. And I am so frustrated at the direction they've been going for so long. The sticking their head in the sand behavior and acting as though everything's great when there are actionable things that could be done to improve the way they make games and return them to the height of when they were making amazing Game of the Year contenders regularly. I'm frustrated as a fan at what they're doing. That does not make me a hater. If anything, it makes me a more honest supporter of them, that I'm still here and I haven't just totally checked out. You know what happened when we fans of CDPR got Cyberpunk 2077? We got really upset. We said lots of very, very blunt and, dare I say, mean things about that launch because it was straight up criminal and how they sold a broken game to people and hid it away so people would still buy it without realizing how bad it was. It was horrible, and we held their feet to the fire. And you know what they did? When they got that pressure, they fixed it. They put out an expansion that was wildly impressive. They actually did the work to try and earn our fandom back. And have they done that fully? Probably not. They still need to do a good amount of work leading into The Witcher 4 and all of that. But as fans, we did not coddle them or pretend as though everything was great and fine and hoop-de-doody. Everything built up into this pressure that was applied to them so that they could make changes that they needed to make. But with BGS, there is a subset of the fan base that acts as though if you don't like Starfield, or if you don't like the direction they've gone with paid mods, with $7 quest lines in a single player game that last maybe half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, with quest rewards that are broken. You get a gun and it doesn't even reload. That is unacceptable. Not like, oh, we can be upset about it. That should be totally embarrassing to these guys, and they have not said a word about it. When Todd went on that interview with Mr. Matty Plays, he was like, yeah, we're evaluating our pricing strategies for paid mods and stuff, and we think they're really great. You know what you did. You know what you did. That is not okay. It is unacceptable. But so long as their fans are making excuses for it, nothing will change. And that's why I am confident and happier seeing that the feedback for the expansion reflects its actual quality, in my opinion. Seeing that people, even among their most ardent supporters, are coming out and being like, guys, this is not it. What are we doing? This is crazy to wait a year for this. That's good, because maybe they'll listen to you. They can hand wave away Luke's opinion because Luke, oh, he just hates Starfield, whatever. Like, yeah, we meme on it. I have a candle of Todd Howard, our Lord and Savior. I have a cardboard cutout of him that I pull out every once in a while, taking him down from the bedroom. But for the most part, we rag on him, we joke about it. But at the core, it's because I'm a fan. A lot of you guys are former fans as well. I want them to figure this out. But pretending as though everything's great or focusing on optimism doesn't do anything like that. It just enables their delusion of grandeur. He goes on, maybe it's a game of expectations. Fans want a lot, and we do all we can to accommodate them. Here's what I can tell you. Nobody, and I mean nobody, at Bethesda is patting themselves on the back while ignoring our players. But I think this is exactly the slippery bit, our players. I think that they hand wave away a lot of the critical feedback as people that don't even play the games. I have heard that from plenty of YouTubers and streamers and Twitter accounts that cover BGS stuff and tend to be very, very gentle on them, where they say, oh no, if you hate it, you're just like a hate grifter, or you don't play the games or whatever, so your opinion's invalid. It's an easy way to dismiss the criticism. Maybe, just maybe, so many people found Starfield lackluster because it just frankly was a bit lackluster. Whether or not you learn from that or take anything from it is still, remaining to be seen. But I think just dismissing it is a dangerous thing. So I hope that's not what they're doing. He goes on, in addition to Shattered Space, we've also spent a lot of time this year addressing community concerns and making fixes. We'll continue to do so, and we'll be listening to our fans every step of the way. We make these games for you. Starfield is a massive game, and it takes time for us to address things. We move as fast as we can, as safely as we can. Game development is always tricky, but with a game as big as Starfield, every fix could potentially break something else. That we can agree on. He finishes out, to close, let me say, I love games. I love Bethesda's games. I've been playing them since the Terminator days. All I or anyone here wants to do is just make those games and then make them better. No ego, no arrogance, just a lot of hard work and appreciation of our fans. I'm sure on an individual level that is absolutely true. I do think Emil is very passionate about what he does. I do think he cares about the fan base. I do think he cares about these franchises, and I'll never take that from him because I think he really does care. What I don't think he cares about is critical feedback, which is why I want to show you this clip from a talk he gave right after the launch of Fallout 4. And it's basically a speech at Infinite, which was like a game developer conference thing where a bunch of developers came in and talked about their experiences. And it's from a speech where he was talking about the process of writing in these games and crafting a game that players will like and love. And I just want you to take in how he finishes out this speech. The full speech is about 41 minutes long. I recommend you check it out because it's quite profound in how he handles stuff. But just listen to how he finished out the speech, and I'll let it play.
But that's not the end, though. That's not the end of being a video game developer. Because the true mark of being a real developer is, as every developer knows, is waiting for reviews to come in.
Waiting for reviews.
And then reading the reviews, of course, and hopefully, if you get lucky, ignoring the reviews.
It's a joke. He's trying to be funny, which is fine. But I think it reflects a broader sentiment, which is that if the money comes in, if the game makes money, who cares about the reviews? And that explains so perfectly the problems with Bethesda Game Studios. Ever since they found a way to sell paid mods, they figured out how to do the Fallout 76 thing with $100 a year memberships for that MMO. They figured out all these ways to milk the fan base for tons of cash with their mobile games like Fallout Shelter. And now I think they have like Elder Scrolls Castles, I think is the new one that they have. Ever since they started getting that money coming in, they seem to have much less care for consideration of feedback, critical or otherwise. They just are doing what they're doing because, hey, if we can point to some metrics and show that we're successful in this field, who cares if the rest of the feedback is negative? Like, who cares if people are upset about Starfield's exploration loop or the lack of original content, blah, blah, blah. Who cares if we have peak concurrent numbers higher than anything that we've seen before? Yes, we're on Game Pass, but still. Who cares? Like, who cares if the critical reception for Shattered Space isn't great, if we still see 50,000 concurrent players across Xbox and every other platform? Who cares? And I think that is at the core the problem, because they are relying on feedback from the people who are playing the game actively right now and the people that are giving them the cash, and not looking at the other fans that have been left to the side because they found the games wanting. And if that's how they want to handle things, so be it. I think Elder Scrolls 6 will be shockingly disappointing for many, many people, but, despite being on the Creation Engine 3, I'm sure. But I'm frustrated as somebody that used to love everything that BGS did to see them now just kind of wandering through from game to game, pumping out whatever they think is going to make the quickest buck. It's just frustrating. And I'm not saying that it's all on Emil's shoulders or it's any individual person at BGS's fault, but I think it's because Todd's company has grown to the point where it is a cash cow for ZeniMax and therefore for Xbox across all of their things, whether it's the mobile games or it's Fallout 76 or all these other projects. And At this point, it's just a machine that pumps out these sort of generic junk food games for people, and any old school fans who are looking for more substance have been left behind, and I'm not sure if they'll ever be picked up again. Maybe it's time to look elsewhere, like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, a remarkable RPG by all accounts that I'm very excited for. And if you want to see my video on that game, make sure to subscribe because it's going to go up tomorrow. But with all that said, thank you for watching. I am excited to move on from Starfield. I thought I'd be done after the review, but then this whole thing happened, so I figured we'd talk about it. But I think at this point, BGS is going to go away. They're going to work on their stuff for a while, and maybe next year we'll try their next expansion. What's funny is that we very well could try the next expansion within like weeks of playing GTA 6, which is pretty funny. Just imagine how much different those are going to feel. I cannot wait. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out with me. Until next time, my friends. Much love. I'll see you soon. Hugs and kisses. Bye.